Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dennis at the Range. Today we're going to be talking about the Manhurin MR73 revolver made for the GIGN. We're going to cover the story of the Manhurin company from its very beginning in 1919. We're going to dive deep into how the MR73 was developed specifically for France's elite GIGN, and after that we'll do a deep dive on every single component of this legendary revolver. And I'm sure that by the end of this video you will be as convinced as I am that this is the best revolver ever made. Manhurin was created in 1919 in Mulhouse, which is in the Haut-Rhin department. And this is where the name comes from. It's basically Manufacture de Machines du Haut-Rhin. The creator was a guy named Julius Spengler, who is also known as Jules Spengler, because he Frenchified his name. The company started making production equipment for food, but then changed to ammunition-related machines. By the 1920s, they were already exporting these machines all over the world. After World War II, they decided to get into actual firearms. They signed a licensing deal with Walther to make the PP, PPK, and PPK/S pistols. Manhurin ended up producing hundreds of thousands of these pistols. Then there was this, the MR73, followed up by the MR88 and the MR93 revolvers. In the 80s, people didn't really care anymore about revolvers because there were new semi-auto pistols that were coming out. So Manhurin sold their handgun division to Chapuis Armes in 1998, and they still make them there with the same quality. Beretta buys Chapuis and imports the MR73 in the US, so that's how you might have heard of it. So this is basically the story of Manhurin that's very simplified, but let's go into the story of the MR73 now. The MR73 story starts right after the 1972 Munich Olympics terrorist attack. Now, I'm not gonna go very much into detail, but here's a quick rundown. Early in the morning, 8 members of the Palestinian militant group called Black September scaled the fence of the Olympic Village carrying weapons in bags. They entered the Israeli delegation's quarters, and there was a small fight where some athletes were able to escape, but there remained 9 hostages. The Palestinians wanted the release of Palestinian prisoners held in Israel and even some in Germany. The standoff lasted for about 20 hours and ended catastrophically. The terrorists and hostages were eventually flown by helicopter to an airbase which I'm not even going to try pronouncing, where the German authorities planned an ambush. The rescue attempt was a complete and total disaster. The snipers were just regular police officers with zero specialized training or telescopic sights. There was no radio contact between them, and the police had no idea there were 8 terrorists. They thought there were 5. They were actually using iron-sighted G3s, which is not the most optimal platform for hostage situation at 300 meters. Things went sideways and all the hostages were killed along with 1 police officer. It was at this moment that modern police forces woke up about needing specialized units for these kinds of high-risk missions. The Germans created the GSG-9 as a direct consequence from this attack. France also realized it needed its own elite counter-terror and hostage rescue unit, so they created the GIGN. This stands for Groupe d'Intervention de la Gendarmerie Nationale. And if you've been following the channel, you know that I always say that the GIGN is the special forces unit with the best style in the world, hands down. I'm interrupting this video to talk to you about CNP Tir. They are the first ones to believe fully in Dennis at the Range, so I really have to thank them a lot for that. They have absolutely everything, and I was very surprised when I walked in and I saw all that there is here. They have all the latest things that come out from the industry, and they also have a bunch of old vintage rifles with a lot of history. I am right now in their vault, and you can see there's just everything. So again, thank you very much to CNP. Now let's get to the video. Being the early 70s, they wanted a revolver as their primary sidearm because revolvers were simple, reliable, and didn't jam. It's also very important to note that in the context of the missions that the GIGN would undertake, they needed to be very precise. While most handguns are seen as defensive tools, the GIGN trained to use the revolver as an offensive weapon, effective at distances from 10 to 50 meters. If the operators could shoot accurately, then only 1 shot was needed, and it lowered the risk of having follow-up shots hitting what you don't want to hit. We'll look at this later in the video, but the single action of this revolver is insanely good. This was also a time when Gaston Glock had not blessed the world with the Glock 17. So the choice for the revolver was made. Now they needed a caliber. They tested a bunch of calibers like the 44 Magnum, but they found out that the recoil was not worth the extra energy because what they were after was stopping power. Insert the boomer quote of, "Oh, more stopping power." They used bullets that would expand upon hitting the target, which would drop the scoundrel with 1 shot. And semi-auto pistols didn't really fit those bullets reliably at the time too. So that's another point for the revolver. We also need to understand that the GIGN does not like killing terrorists. They would rather have them brought to justice and face a proper tribunal. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail when we look at how this revolver was used, but I digress. Christian Proutot, the founder of the GIGN, says that people focus too much on penetration. And I agree, because I think a lot about that. But actually, stopping power is what mattered to him. The GIGN tried the good old American 357 Magnum from Smith & Wesson, the Model 19, with a 4-inch barrel. But they found out that those guns couldn't handle the GIGN's round count that were about 150 rounds a day, 5 days a week, forever, basically. The cylinders would just loosen up, the timing would go off, and in the end, accuracy suffered. This is not saying that the Smith is a bad gun, it's just that most people would rather shoot 38 Special because it's cheaper and there's less recoil, so the gun was never pushed to its limits like the French did. So, in 1971, the GIGN asked Manhurin to design something better, and this is where the engineer Gilbert Maillard led the project and came up with the MR73, officially introduced in 1973. It was built from the ground up to be the strongest and most durable 357 Magnum revolver in the world. They tried out different barrel lengths such as 3, 4 and 6 inches, but they came to the realization that the most optimal length was 5 inches and a quarter, just like this one. I would have thought that actually 3 inches is more optimal, but maybe that's just me. They used high-strength ordnance certified steel for the frame and cylinder, a special heat treatment process, and incredibly tight tolerances. The GIGN adopted it immediately and made it their standard sidearm. The operators were issued 2 MR73s each. There was a 3-inch one, which is 76mm, for plain clothes or just VIP protection, and then there was the 5¼ inch, which is 133mm, for the hostage rescue and the real deal. There was even an 8-inch, which is 20cm, sniper variant with a scope and a bipod for long-range shooting. That is just crazy. They did that because they feared that in urban environments it would be hard to hide the length of a rifle. The rifle being long could have the barrel protruding out of a window, and they didn't want that, so they went for the compact revolver. And that's also a testament of how good this revolver is, because they would literally use it as a sniper. They would train to shoot 100 yards with a revolver. Now, for the regular 3 and 5¼ variants, they trained with it at 15, 25 and 50 meters, which 50 meters is still insane, and they were always using a smaller target in double action. Like, that's just crazy. And also a fun fact, small parenthesis here, when they were training, they had the automatic targets that would move into positions for the operator to shoot them. It's basically the targets that would, like, they were flat and then they would turn. Proutot found that this was too easy because he says that we can see faster than we can hear. So he changed to having a whistle and having all his operators shoot at the sound of the whistle. It's basically like the beep in USPSA.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Stand by.
This dude was absolutely the real deal. You remember when I said that the GIGN does not like killing people? Well, Proutot practiced what he preached. This absolute badass freed a hostage at 25 meters by putting a shot in the shoulder of the perpetrator during a hostage situation, with iron sights too. And that's not even the most impressive feat with this gun, because there was a time where a prisoner had taken the prison director hostage and was holding a revolver against the director's back. They led the prisoner to believe that they were providing him with a getaway car to escape prison. Then Proutot calculated the exact path that the prisoner would take and positioned one of his elite revolver marksmen along that route. When the prisoner came within approximately 15 meters of the operator's position, the operator shot the grip of the revolver. I don't think you understand how insane that is. We are talking about a target that is about 15 meters away. It is 5 centimeters or 2 inches in diameter. It is moving, and if you miss, the dude is gonna absolutely fold the hostage. You know what? That isn't even the craziest part, because when the operator shot the grip, the revolver fell to the floor, and the dude tried to pick it up. And guess what the operator did? He just put a hole in his left hand. That's what I'm talking about! Double tapped the dude. They could have absolutely domed the dude and folded him like a taco. Like, just imagine the head, the size of the head compared to the size of a revolver grip. But they decided to risk it and bring him to justice. Those dudes have balls of tungsten, and with the right tool, they will do magic. Today, the MR73 is officially retired from service, but it's still the ceremonial pistol, and it's the one they do the tir de confiance with. Now, you might have seen this before, but after about a year of training, the future operators have to prove that they belong in the unit. So, in pairs, they have one man attach a clay pigeon to the torso, and the other man has to shoot the clay pigeon from about 15 meters. Obviously, there's armor, like they're not gonna strap a clay pigeon like that. This shot marks a transition from being a shooter to being an operator who remains calm when the stakes are at their absolute highest. It's a direct representation of trusting your equipment and your teammate when you're downrange. And while we're talking about trusting your equipment, let's talk about how these revolvers are tested from the factory. The 3 tests that every single revolver goes through are the overpressure test, where revolvers are proof tested at the Saint-Étienne proof house using ammunition that generates pressure 30% higher than standard level. Then there's the function test. It's the trigger pull weight, the adjustment range, the cylinder lockup, the operation of the firearm in single and double action, and everything you can do with the pistol is meticulously meticulously checked by master gunsmiths by hand. And lastly, we have the accuracy test. So all revolvers undergo a final accuracy test. The match models are delivered with a test target where there's a 6-shot group at 25 meters, and that group must be under 20 millimeters. That's under an inch at 25 meters. That's just crazy. Now, I've talked enough about this. Let's look at it in detail. Here we have the Manhurin revolver. This box is actually very similar to the Tanfoglio box when I opened the Tanfoglio Stockmaster 3 back in this video over here, but you have 2 locks on each side. Push outwards and it's gonna open up automatically. We begin by having the instruction manual on the case for the locks that I just talked about. Then we have the instructor's manuals for everything related to the MR73 right here. And here we have the certificate of how they were testing it. So this is what I was just talking about, where Saint-Etienne tests every single revolver. We have a Manhurin cleaning kit over here, which it's literally like it was in the Tanfoglio. I think it's even the same supplier. Everything you need to clean your revolver. There's this multi-tool here that you're gonna use to tweak and tune everything in your revolver, this piece of foam, and now we have the big reveal. So you'll see how the finishing is on this revolver. It is a nightmare. It's honestly a fingerprint magnet. So it does come in this small bag for it to be protected, and inside the small bag we do have more paper. So it's kind of like a present in Christmas. You're unwrapping a present. Okay, so let me get everything out of the way. Before we dive into all the small details of this gun, we need to see why it is so good. So there's a 6-step process on how these weapons are assembled and finished. And all those 6 steps are done by hand. The first one is inspection, deburring and polishing of all the machined frames. Then there's the assembly and fitting of the action, barrels, cylinder and cylinder lock. Then they fit the ejector. Then there's the polyglass finish that they do, which is this crazy finish. It's beautiful, but it's a fingerprint magnet. Then they do the bluing, and then they assemble and fit everything else, such as the front sights, the grips, and all the other components. Now on camera here, you might notice that the trigger and the hammer are different color. We need to understand that the hammer and the trigger are high wear components of the firearms, so they do need a special treatment. Now, this treatment is a specific metallurgical process, which is called case hardening. This process makes the parts incredibly hard, which makes them keep their edge on the outside. However, on the inside, they are still a little bit softer, so it's not gonna crack, because if metal is very, very hard, it means it's very brittle. And since it's made to handle very hot loads from the 357, it needs to be resistant. But now that we went over why it is special, let's talk about the components. Now let's go tip to bottom. If we talk about the sighting system, we're talking about the 70s. And in the 70s, they didn't really have red dot sights for pistols like we have today. So these sights are just regular iron sights, but you might notice that the whole gun is glossy, but on top here, it's matte. Now, it's matte black because you don't want the sunlight reflecting in your eyes. And this is also exemplified. There's all these ridges right here. And all these ridges are meant to deflect the light and not bounce it into the shooter's eyes, so that the shooter can have a proper shot without being blinded by the sun. Now, this is what they look like. There's nothing too crazy about that. So right below that, we have the barrel, which is 5 1/4 inches, which is 133 millimeters. Now, as I mentioned previously, this is the optimal length that they found. This barrel is cold hammer forged, and that's what it makes it so special, because it's super resistant. The 357 is a very hot cartridge, and it's going to be fired very often. So the barrel needs to be very strong, and that's why they went with cold hammer forge. Then we have the cylinder. This is the star of the show. This is a 6-shot cylinder that's going to come out by pushing right here. When you push here, your rounds are going to come out. Just like the Smith & Wesson that it was based off, spins counterclockwise. So here you see the cylinder here is fluted because they wanted to save a little bit of weight. You don't really want to have a super heavy pistol when you can. And all the chamber finishing operations are carried out by roller burnishing, which increases their hardness. Everything in this gun is made for durability, hardness, and precision. Back in the day, they didn't used to carry the semi-auto pistols with a round in the chamber. That's why they thought that revolvers were going to be faster. With these ones, you just pull out and shoot. Now, there is a safety inside of the MR73. It's a traditional hammer block safety that's built into the action. So when the hammer is down, the firing pin is blocked so that the gun is completely safe even if you drop it. So back in the 70s, they were having drop safe guns before the SIG did. That's crazy. Now going down, we have the Trouche grips. The Trouche grips are kind of ugly because some people will like having a beautiful wood finish, but remember, this was made for real life use and not just sitting in a safe and being a safe queen. These grips were designed by Jean-Pierre Trouche. He was a specialist who worked very closely with the shooters to create a grip that prioritized ergonomics over aesthetics, so they needed to perform. It doesn't matter how they look, even though the GIGN looks always super drippy. They're made of a high density glass fiber reinforced rubber. It's not squishy, it's very hard, but it's still very grippy. Even if your hands are wet with whatever type of liquid, the operator is still gonna have a good grip on the gun. And it's also important to note that there is a small beaver tail here that's gonna reduce recoil and make it very nice to hold. Like, this gun feels very well in my hand. If we look a little bit at the markings, we see that on top there's HA and then we have the serial number. The HA means that they're made in the Chapuis factory. If they were made in the other factory, it would be a single letter in front of the rest of the serial number. In the barrel we have MR73 caliber 357 Magnum. On the other side we have the logo of Manhurin over here. And then we have the pride of France. This gun is made in France. This trigger is super nice. It is such a smooth double action. It's equal pressure all the time, which we're gonna see how that works in the mechanism in just a moment. But let's see how the double action goes. It's crazy. It's the same pressure all the time. So the double action is about 8 to 10 pounds, which is 3.6 to 4.5 kilograms. And where it shines and why this gun is used as a sniper is a single action. So if we cock it back, we have a single action that's just crazy. I mean, there's basically no movement here. It's insane. So this allows you to do very precise shots and to hit your target whenever you need it, because the GIGN operators did not want to shoot the hostage. So even when they train all the time in double action, it means that just a single action is gonna be easier. Now the single action is about 3 to 4 pounds, which is 1.4 to 1.8 kilograms. And it's crazy. So here I disassembled the Trouche grips off of the Manhurin. It's very simple to do. There's just one screw that comes here and just goes to the other side. These grips are super cool, and I mean, it's functional until the end because you can put an Allen key over here, and this Allen key is gonna allow you to tune the trigger. So to tune the trigger, there's a screw here and then there's an Allen key, and all that's gonna make the trigger spring over here more or less hard. Now, if we wanna see the internals of the gun, we have two screws over here. And this plate is a little bit hard to take apart because the tolerances are so tight. The easiest way I've seen is you grab something that's not gonna damage the whole frame and you just lightly tap. Now I tapped here and we have the plate, the Manhurin plate, which, I mean, it's just a fingerprint magnet, but it's so beautiful. The tolerances in this are insane. Like, you'll see when I put it back, and even taking it out, you have to like gently smack it so it wiggles itself out because it's not gonna move. This is very well finished. And now we have the mechanism itself. I'm not a gunsmith, so I am not going to fully disassemble this. However, I do understand a little bit and I wanna show you how this works. So if you take this out first, this is a lift spring that's gonna push this small part right here. And this small part right here, it's what's gonna make your cylinder rotate. The reason that this trigger is so smooth is because it uses a sliding carriage. This means that the pressure is gonna be equal, which makes your double action super smooth. This looks a lot more like a Swiss watch instead of a pistol. So it is a precision tool made for precision use by surgeons that are the GIGN. It's crazy, it's beautiful. I'm gonna put some B-roll on the screen because it's such a beautiful gun. The mechanism is crazy. Super smooth, very nice. And I'm not really gonna touch anything else because I don't really wanna break it and I am not a gunsmith. Thank you for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. Thanks again to CNP for making this video possible. Make sure to follow me on Instagram, and until the next one, Dennis out.